Checklist.io.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of You Deserve Fresh Lettuce. I am your co-host Rachel.
And I'm Delia.
And today we're going to be talking about going from divorce to just friends, co-parenting, and all the sticky details.
Sticky situations.
Yes,
just
yes,
friends.
yes,
We're
yes.
just friends, I promise.
So I'm going to start this one
Yeah.
because I get asked this question quite a bit. And the question is, how in the world are you able to get along with your ex the way you do, knowing everything you've been through? I mean, I have a whole ass podcast about it with Delia.
Yeah.
And another one that I did like a year before where I hinted at it, that I shared a little bit about that. And it's like, and there's so much more that I'll probably never ever reveal out of respect for my kid, my son, and my ex, and the in-laws, and all. Yeah, just some privacy.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, it wasn't always easy. So this conversation is going to lean a little bit this way a lot, and then Delia, we're going to have her chime in on some other
my circumstances and situation where I'm going to be a little bit more candid about my current situation. But it's nice to see and to know that there's different perspectives and different outcomes in whatever it is that you decide to do.
Yes, because you know what? More people are in her position as far as the dynamic between their ex than in my position, and I recognize that. And I wanted to just create a whole episode dedicated to this because, you might be on the fence. You might be wanting something better of a situation dynamically with your ex, but don't know how to go about it. So that's what we're going to get into.
Let's do it.
Okay, so first and foremost, the way you becoming friends with your ex has nothing to do with forgetting everything he put you through.
Right.
It has nothing to do with that.
Right.
You don't ever forget what they put you through. If you're a person that really went through it with your ex, don't kid yourself into, well, I haven't healed from that, or I haven't forgotten about it yet, or I haven't. No, you can forgive. You'll never forget. You might not even have forgiven yet.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
But I do feel, I've always said this though, in my opinion, I feel that to say that I have forgiven, but I haven't forgotten, they're like cousins. I mean, if you forgive somebody, you have to forget it. If you don't forget it, it's hard for you to forgive it. Yeah. And so I'm just kind of throwing a little salt in there. I don't know that it even aligns, but I do believe that. And I think a lot of the time, I think that's where it gets confusing for people to, to kind of move forward because you have forgiven supposedly, but you haven't forgotten.
Yeah. I think it's like impossible to forget pain that was caused by another person, especially if you really love them. But, resentment's a whole other beast. You can never forget, but then not hold any resentments. And I think that when you get to that place, it's an awesome place. But I do want to highlight the fact that to have a healthy co-parenting situation, or to become friendly with your ex and have this really great dynamic for the kids, so to speak. I mean, listen, you were probably married to him for umpteen years, or, whatever, 20 years for the kids, and this is a continuation of that in many ways. And now I can speak on it because I wasn't fighting over assets. This wasn't War of the Roses. This was strictly, we kind of had figured all that kind of stuff out, and we came to a written agreement, and then it was like, let's move on from there.
Right.
And what it looked like it was a hot mess in the beginning because I wanted him to still feel like he was still their dad. I wanted him to understand divorce does not mean he is no longer a father. So many guys, I think what happens is they get divorced and they're like, they're pissed at the girl for even freaking divorcing him in the first place. And they're out running amok and they don't understand. No, you're a single father. I'm a single mother and now you're a single father, but you're still a father. And so I just wanted to make sure that I was making a way for that to take place. And let me tell you what this looked like, ladies. You know how people do, you can have the kids every other weekend and 2 holidays a year, whatever. I put all that down. It never happened. It never happened. I had to let go of trying to control when and where and how and everything with his kids. I had to do that.
Right.
So that what happened, he came sometimes once a month. Sometimes once a week on a random Wednesday.
Right.
Sometimes, hey, I'm here to get the kids. And you're like, I was just on my way to the amusement park with them.
Yeah, like, what?
I mean, I could have had a family thing planned, and it's, he's like, hey, I'm picking up the boys because, my brother's in town. And then I'm like, what?
No.
So those things are the things that as women, we want to fight over.
Right.
So I chose to not fight over it. I chose to say to the boys, okay, well, your dad's trying to pick you up to go I know we're on our way to wherever, but he's trying to pick you up.
Choice?
What do you guys want to do?
Right.
Oftentimes they say, no, Mom, we'll just tell him So I kind of put that on them without making them feel guilty. I wanted to make sure that they genuinely understood that I didn't it's like a person who stops by your house without calling.
Right.
But worse, right? Because it's like a power trip.
I don't really, yeah, exactly.
So I want you to understand the dynamics of it. We're not easy. So those of you who know me, those of you who don't know me, I have a really great post-divorce situation with my ex that entails him coming over whenever he would like. But in saying that, I'd like my doors open. But what I mean by that is also he hardly does come by. So he's not there every day. He's not even there once a week. But when he does come by, he feels free and safe to come by to spend time in my house, actually watching movies with his sons or whatever. And like they will sometimes leave to go eat. Sometimes he's like, hey, Adrian, or whatever, meet me over here. So I don't attempt to control any of that whatsoever. But in the beginning, it was so hard because I wanted to be able to say, hey, the boys are at their dad's this weekend. I can make plans. And I could have chosen to be very pissed off about the fact that I didn't get to do that. Meanwhile, he got to do whatever.
Right.
And I just had to say, what's the best thing for the boys? What's the best thing for my peace? What's the best thing for them?
Yeah.
And that's how that began.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But it wasn't easy.
No, it's never easy. I think the responsibility is more so for the women. You once in a while will hear the women that walk away from the entire package, like the man and the kids.
And the money and the whole...
everything. They don't even care. They'll run off with whomever.
Isn't that crazy?
No, I've heard stories like that. And it's mind-boggling because, we as women are kind of conditioned to be more of nurturers. We're conditioned to know that, we assume the package, period. And the parent, the dad also will assume the package, but it's on a different level. I think most of the responsibility usually will be on the woman. And unless you can figure that it's 50-50 custody. And it's I think in my opinion, sometimes that's a little bit unfair to the children only because they're not stable because they're only spending half of the time at one household and half of the time at the other household. So I think when you're a parent, I don't think it's more of a selfless act when you allow the other parent to have some time, some visitation. I hear of women that don't allow zero visitation. And I think that is a disservice to the children because it's not about what he did to you. It's about the fact that he's a father and he has the responsibility to also be in your children's lives. And in my opinion, I feel that it doesn't matter how it ended. And I understand the forgiving and forgetting. You may have resentment, but it's not about you. It's about your children. And for me, it's been way different than, Rachel, having and allowing her ex-husband to come in and watch movies. For me, it's been completely different where I could say that he's not even allowed to come to my house. We have an exchange at the police station, which is sometimes common depending on the type of divorce that you had and if there's domestic violence and what have you. And restraining orders, we can get really deep into that. But point is, at the end of the day, there is a connection. The connection is that child that you decided to have with this person. So how can you make things good or peaceful for not only yourself, but for the children, for their upbringing? And it really has nothing to do with the way I feel or the way he feels. It has everything to do with how we are going to co-parent for the sake of the children. And a lot of the times I think parents are so selfish and they only think about how it makes them feel. And they don't really sit there and tap into how it makes the kids feel. And I think that's the selfless, person like Rachel, where she's okay with that. And then there might be that selfishness on my end, possibly. But I just think if we broke up, I respectfully don't, at this moment, I don't, like I say, it's a Tupac energy. I don't want to not see you eat, but you just can't sit at my table.
Exactly.
Period. And that's my perspective.
There has to be a psychological thing that you do master, an emotional thing that you master. And I found that the key to it, because I know a lot of other people that broke up with their husbands at the same time I did, And it took them way longer to get to the point than that. I got to it quick. And I think because mentally, when I walked away from my marriage, I knew mentally it was over. There was nothing that man could buy me, tell me, show me.
Right.
Like there was nothing he was going to do to convince me. I cannot be convinced or resold a damaged good. Like it's not going to happen.
Right.
I'm just like, no. But it took time for my heart to catch up, right? I recognize that. So here was something that I did because I saw other women having a lot of trouble with the dynamic of their ex after, and especially seeing their ex go date other girls and all that. I went really quickly into not caring about that. And I think the main key was I wasn't intimate with my ex.
Okay.
I was not intimate with my ex. If you have left your husband and you're still intimate with him, that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, you're reconnecting, you're reconnecting all of those different wires. I mean, because at the end of the day, I don't care who you are, and you may be able to have sex with different people, like shaking people's hands and just meeting people. I understand a lot of people could do that, but at the end of the day, there was something there at one point, and so if you're able to connect on a sexual level, it's really difficult for you to cut those ties if you're still messing around. And if you don't, then you're just like out of mind, out of sight, out of mind. And if he wants to go date my neighbor, he is welcome to do that.
He better not date my neighbor. I'm like, there's so many people in the world that I'm like, you don't need to be, like you say, a messy eater. You don't got to eat off my plate. Like where I'm living and my little world, you don't got to be in my world.
But a lot of the time, I think that unfortunately, it is what it is. Like if they're messy eaters, even if they're just coming into your world just to be there and not have any type of sexual relationship with you, they're just gonna go there just to even though you think you're better, like you've done the work to be in a better place, you don't know if he's done the work and you don't know if he's over you. And a lot of the time, like I can take it back to, being in grade school, they always say you can never have a male best friend. I mean, unless he's gay, right? Then he'll give you like good like style advice. But that's just me going on a tangent. But point is, a lot of the time you can't have that friendship because guess what? You don't know if they're over you. You don't know if they're really over you.
But here's the thing. You have to assume they're not over you. Okay. You have to assume they haven't done the work. My ex wasn't over me. He didn't do any kind of work till this day. Like he's exactly the person that I left. Like all those years ago. I don't expect any, I expect zero of him because he is not my husband. He's not my responsibility. Like I had to learn really quick in the first 90 days, this person is no longer your person. This is just the father of my kids. So I don't care who he goes out with or anything, but I do expect that he be respectful and not try to be hidden at my friends, which by the way, he did.
And that's what I mean.
People,
so you won't do it because you know where you stand. The person that you've now let into your home is going to be messy, and at the end of the day, you cut them out for a reason. So it's like I understand. I have a binding contract with you for a lifetime, whether it's on an actual piece of paper or not. I mean, I understand there's a lifelong responsibility. He's a messy eater, believe me. He's gonna be big.
Yeah, so that's why for one.
That's why he can't eat at my table.
Yeah, for
Tupac energy.
For one, no joke. For one, please, I beg you, if you want to have a healthy co-parenting relationship, do not be intimate with your ex. I agree. Just do not. And then you have to also have some boundaries, many of which you're not going to be fighting for because you don't want to, you just know he's a habitual line stepper or whatever. Lines mean nothing to him, or you'd probably still be married to him, right? So true. So at the end of the day, you go, okay, first and foremost, I'm not going to give up my heart to this man. I'm not going to give up my body. I'm a very I'm a love bug. So to me, if I'm being intimate with someone, I'm not doing that for sports. It's not transactional. It's not cold. To me, if I'm giving somebody my body, it is now we are entering into an emotional, loving, nurturing relationship. So that's how I operate. So I know that if I would have said, oh, you know what, I'm a woman with needs and he's there, I'm just going to do that. That is going to put me, it's going to unbalance me. It's going to knock my equilibrium off. And I won't be able to be strong. Like, I just know how I am. And so for me, I understood, don't do that, because I was watching another sister-in-law of mine doing that, and it wasn't working out well at all. That dude would go, do whatever, leave, and then guess what? He was over here and over there, and she would be fighting. She'd be showing up places. And so what ends up happening to that situation is you go, how are you going to go from being his wife to now his side chick? Like, I didn't see how that was a thing for me. And so at the end of the day, I did a fantastic job. I'm honestly, like, one of the proudest things I ever did was I was able to make sure I didn't do that with him.
Right.
So that then when he showed up, sometimes he showed up drunk. Sometimes he showed up with a freaking attitude. Let me tell you, there were times I was working a lot. I wasn't even home. He'd come through my house and go through all my things.
Wow.
There were so many instances, but I had to ask myself, do I feel unsafe? Meaning, do I think this man is going to hurt me physically or take my life? That's number one.
That's really important.
And do my children feel threatened in any way, shape, or form? If the answer is no, he's just having a freaking moment. Like, I'm not going to go spin my world upside down and have a huge master conniption fit because of that. I'm just going to go, clearly he has a moment. When he has those moments, I don't want him here.
Yeah.
And having a conversation with my kids, being able to say, listen, your dad is welcome. And by the way, when a lot of times when he would come to the house, I would actually leave. You know, that I would go have dinner with my mom, or I would find something to do because I have errands to run. And now it's like, okay, well, he's there.
Yeah.
And so I would even go on dates.
Yeah.
I actually had one person, oh my gosh, like this one person who I really, really was like, this is probably the one. And he said, how often do your children, your boys, see your ex? Really, I understood he wanted to know how often I saw my ex.
Yeah, because he knows,
And I said, he's probably on the couch right now watching a movie.
Holy moly.
On the book. And he goes, at your house? And I said, I mean, probably, I don't know. I mean, I'm like, it's like whatever. And then he goes, well, how do you expect that to work out for you in the future? He made it clear right with that statement. He was not going to put up with that.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out how that was going to work.
Well,
for me.
I mean, I think if the tables were turned, I think it always has to be that way where you know, sometimes we get offended and we're like, well, how dare you? I've never been with him. I haven't been with him.
Yeah.
Not never, because obviously I have kids.
Yeah.
I haven't been with him, but if the tables were turned, you have to really take into consideration, how would I feel? And also do the work to say, it's an aha moment. I understand why he'd feel that way, because I would feel some type of way also. But in the other hand, though, in my opinion, I feel that, you know, everyone, there's the whole show Modern Family, and people can pretty much be able to get to that point and have friendships, and the ex-wives the new wife comes, and even the new wife that he cheated on, that he now married and has new kids. Yeah. Sometimes you'll hear stories where the ex-wife takes care of the new kids. and that dynamic works. It's mind-boggling to me. But crazy. But I love hearing stories like that, because I'm like, well, anything in this world is possible. My relationship, most definitely, if he's on my couch, there's a big problem. Yeah. For you, it works. For me, it would never work.
And it didn't work for me for a long time. I used the couch sitting thing because it annoyed the heck out of me. I mean, it took me a long time to move out of the place that we lived in together. Right. Because when we were living there for like 2 years or something, 3 years, 4 years maybe. And that was hard because he would show up and it was like still kind of like his house. Yeah. And so that was tough. And so I said, I gotta get out of here, you know? Yeah. So I ended up getting my own place that he's never lived in, right? I've never lived in. It's a fresh start for me and my boys, you know, decent neighborhood, all those things. And then he was more hesitant. He wasn't showing up as much. So I feel like the territory thing is a thing. And then once I opened the door and said, you know, you're always welcome to come spend time with the boys, pick them up. You know, if you want to hang out here or whatever, that's fine. But, you know, I just want you to just respect me. Meaning, don't come snapping at me. I'm not going to bring you a sandwich. Yeah. Like, that's not what this is, you know. But you have to have respect for me, especially in front of the boys. I don't care how mad you are with me or whatever. And he's like, oh, yeah. Well, there were a few times. There's been 100 of them. Yeah. Where he just said something or did something. And I said, listen, you want to be here with them visiting? Cool. But you miss me with that BS. Like you'll have to leave. And there's been times where he's run out of the house. Like I made a small little, you don't get to do that here. What? Yeah. And ran out of the house and slammed the door. And it just, I did it not so long ago. I did it like 3 months ago. And I was like, you know, I don't know what situation you're going through, what kind of mood this is, but I'm not the one. So I've never been like the shoulder lean on to him.
Right.
He comes, he's welcome.
And that's it.
He can spend time. We'll talk here and there, rarely ever alone.
Yeah.
And that's truly, truly it. But I can say I genuinely care for his well-being.
Of course.
He's dated people off and on, all kinds of situations. And like for me, like I said, he's been there visiting and I've gotten dolled up and headed out to go to dinner and go on dates and stuff like that. And he's not like stalking, you know, there's no weird stuff.
No weird stuff, yeah. And I think what it boils down to, in my opinion, it's really simple. You have to understand that whether the circumstances that Rachel's painting out, the way that she, you know, interacts with her ex-husband, maybe that might be the way that you interact with your soon-to-be ex-husband or the person that you're currently with, and that could potentially be your ex-husband. However, I do feel that at the end of the day, what it boils down to is whatever really is the best thing for the children. And if the kids come to an age, I think that at the age of 12, 13, they make that determination whether or not they want to see their dad or not. I think it's really important we as women, we implement, unless your ex-husband or your ex-person is an alcoholic or an abuser, or, you know, you're going to put your kids in danger. I think we as women have a lot of input in making sure that the children also have a relationship with their father and the family on the other side, which is like grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. It's really important that you continue that union or that unity with the families. But unless you feel that, in your opinion, that they're going to be at risk, I think at that moment you need to just kind of, you know what, be at all times, be protective. Be protective of your children. But otherwise, I think regardless of how it works out for you, whether that's, you know, not necessarily having him in your space because he's also rattling cages inside of you. And it's really hard, in my opinion, to move past that because he essentially was rattling your cage in your space. And so even though you're trying to be the better person by showing your children that you guys can be at the same place at the same time and not go, you know, get on each other's throats, those antics and him running out and him, you know, getting pissed off, I mean, that also shows the children that, you know, there's still a little animosity. So how do we fix that too?
Yeah, I think that the key to that is when they start to see if you're calm and you're collected. Now, let me tell you, if he's doing that all the time, he just shouldn't be around. I'm not talking about a situation where every time he's around, he pushes your buttons. You don't need that. That's unhealthy for you. It's unhealthy for the kids. Listen,
and it's unhealthy for you to continue.
If it's unhealthy for you, it's unhealthy for your kids. If he has his own place, go. I know for my ex, he didn't have his own place for a long time. He was kind of like a roommate or whatever. So he didn't feel like he had space. And I think that's really a big part of why I was like, okay, but he also didn't put me in situations every single time. In the beginning, he did. And so we went even months where he wasn't even allowed to come around the house. My neighbors would say, hey, I saw him driving by. You know, you need to be careful. I mean, I went through all those things. And so at the end of the day, you want safety first, and then your peace needs to be a priority, as well as your children. But it's all about making your kids part of the team, part of your team, and you're like, you guys are holding this fort up together. It's not just you and they're seeking shelter. It's like, you need to go, okay, let's sit down. I want you to have a great relationship with your dad. You only got one. He was a shitty husband. Doesn't mean he's a shitty father.
Doesn't have to mean that.
No, but I want you to understand I need my peace. Like, I need you to understand I can't have him calling me names outside my name. I can't have him doing this and that. And if he does that, I'm going to ask him to leave. If he does it repeatedly, he just can't come anymore. And it's better for you guys to meet at the park or whatever the situation is.
Wherever the meeting point is,
I made sure that the rules of engagement were absolutely clear with my boys. So if their dad came and acted up, they were like, oh, dad's ruining it. It was very clear, dad's ruining it. And so then they would even have talks with him saying, Dad, we want you to be able to come over or whatever, but like you're going to have to get it together. And so they were on the team, right?
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, and so I don't want it to seem like it's so easy and dreamy, because it's costed me also relationships that were very high value relationships that I was like, this is going to be a good thing. And they just couldn't get past the fact that I was so open with my ex. And I am a hypocrite in that, because I don't know that I could be okay with that dynamic on the other side if a man was that involved
Close.
with his ex-wife. But I do see myself as the kind of person who, when I get remarried, absolutely his ex-wife can stop by, and to get to
Or
know
his
her.
ex-wife.
His ex-wife. Yeah,
Oh.
I'm his new wife.
The new
his
wife.
ex-wife.
Oh,
I'm talking about my new husband.
Oh, the new husband. Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to getting remarried and getting to know that person's ex-wife, and
If he has one.
if he has one, unless he's a widow or whatever. Yeah, and I've told my ex too, hey, me getting married doesn't mean that I disappear.
Yeah.
Like, you're always going to be welcome. And I've seen this in my family with like my one aunt. It's so funny because she has like her 10-year boyfriend situation, and then there's my uncle that's just there. I was just at a pre-Mother's Day event on Saturday, and one man was there with his wife that he's been married to for like 5 years or 10 years, and his ex-wife that he had kids with was there.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out the dynamic, and then it was like, oh, she's the ex, but she's so close to the family.
Right.
And then that's his family, and then his new wife. And so,
I mean, it's modern family. I understand that.
We're all adults, is what it is.
And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's a modern family, and I think that if the dynamic works, it's awesome. But if the person if either or party hasn't gone over, and a lot of the time they'll say, oh, I'm over you, I don't care. But then they do these little lash outs. Believe me, they're not over it, and they're not going to be okay with you moving on. And so you have to really do the internal work to say, okay, let me tap into this. Does this make sense for me? Does this make sense for my children, for my family? Is this healthy for me? Should I have him around? And if it says, if those questions that you're asking is a no,
then it's a no.
Then it's a no. But if you can actually move past that and really put your children first, and I always say this to anybody that will listen, it's not about you. It's about the kids.
Right.
It's making sure that they still have a connection with their dad. And I think a lot of the time, the women want to teach the man a lesson to say, you're not allowed to see the kids because you don't pay child support, because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I can tell you that, if I run a list, everything on that list, my ex-husband does not match or hit anything on that list. But it's not about me. It's about them. It's about my children having a father that is there and that is present.
Yeah.
And so, if he wants them on a weekend that he doesn't have them, it's okay. He can have them.
Yeah.
If my children are okay with being with their dad, then great. I mean, and if your children are going through a moment where I know that was a thing with me where they were so upset they didn't want to see him, you have to tap in and say, hey, what's going on? Is there abuse going on? Are you being mistreated? Because this doesn't just happen out of the blue. There's got to be a reason why the children no longer want to see the dad. And it's really important also, in my opinion, to try to keep any negative comments to yourself if you can. I mean, at the most, and there's moments where, I catch myself, I take a deep breath, count to 10. Sometimes it's 10 times 10, which is 100, to say, don't talk bad about him.
Yes.
That is their dad, and they love their dad.
Yes.
So I think you have to do that and tap in
For
there.
sure.
It's so hard.
Listen, kids are not dumb. Like, they
they
feel.
know.
A part of them misses the dynamic that, no matter how bad your marriage was, no matter who we are, there were happy moments as well. And those kids cling to that. And so it is a bit of a gift if they can see their parents being able to laugh and enjoy each other's company in the family dynamic and stuff like that without the drama. But unfortunately, there are people that are always going to bring the drama. In my situation, I was able to be over my ex. He has taken a long time, no matter who he dates or whatever. But that has not affected this dynamic with me. And so it's important. It doesn't have to be mutual. It's important that at least if you are the one that's like, okay, I'm going to put myself and everything aside for my kids, you have to understand that he's not going to meet you there. Like, this is something you're going to be carrying on your shoulders. It's going to be the majority on you.
Yes.
And that's just how it is. Even when times are good, meaning when you guys really get along and, he's like, oh, you should, like, come to another country with a family. Like, you have to then ask yourself, like, wait a minute. And if you catch yourself slipping back over, towards him emotionally, you got to catch that. Because I know for me, I haven't really had that. I've had these doors kind of open that I go, what is this? I question everything when it comes to that life, because at the end of the day, I left for a reason, like Delia said. And so the Bible has this funny thing that says, only dogs return to their vomit. And I think of that a lot.
Ooh,
and so to me,
deep.
yes, I know in my heart of hearts, in my head, everything, I am meant for something else. There's a new chapter in store for me.
But it goes back to, in a way though, it goes back to the analogy of, in a way, do you think that he's like the box that you're holding, even though it might be empty because you know there's nothing there. You know there's nothing there, but you're holding a box, and God can't give you another box because your hands are full. Do you feel that it has anything to do with that?
No, because there would have to be an emotional attachment for that, and there'd have to be like, he's in my space every day. Like, no, like I live my free life. Like, I don't know what he's doing even right now. Like, we're not always together. I don't text him. I don't call him. He does call and he will message, but it's almost always, hey, Adrian's not answering his phone, or whatever the situation is. So there isn't this like, I'm leaning on you, you're leaning on me. No, you know, if you're doing that, like, it's like, even if you're married to somebody and you have a coworker that's who you tell all your like emotional things to, you're now in an emotional affair with that person.
Right.
If I'm dealing with my ex, there is none of that. I don't know emotionally what he's going through. We did lose a son. And so that was a moment where we only understood each other in a way.
That connection of loss.
Of the loss. And so we would meet in a public cafe and just sit outdoors where there's people around, and then talk with our sunglasses on, because you know tears would come out. But there wasn't like embracing, there wasn't like anything beyond that, you know what I mean? So I think that, you know, you have, and now I can't speak for him. I can't say what he's feeling or what's going through his head. I just know for myself,
that's what
that's just what it is. Like it's just exactly, there's not like I'm holding on to, no, not at all. Like at the end of the day, I know that when I get remarried, and I've had this conversation with him, like hopefully he's prepared or whatever. He jokes around and makes comments, but I'm like so ready, and I've been ready. But you know, I'm a little bit dreamy, like I go, it'd be so great if they could all get along. But I'm okay if that's just not the case.
And that is what it is. I think at the end of the day, you have to really understand that you have to do what's best for you in your spirit. And if that means that you cannot have the person that you went ahead and divorced around you, then you make that determination. But at the end of the day, this is someone that you're always going to have to see. And so however it is that in your inner spirit, you can actually kind of come to the senses of being peaceful with that person, and understand that there's always going to be life events that are going to bring you back together, and you just have to be amicable in the best way that you can be. Then you know what, you have to tap into your heart of hearts and say, you know what, I'm not going to feed into this, and he is someone in my life that I was with, and I have to move on, and for the sake of the children, I'm going to be as of an adult as I can, and as amicable as I can, and just say, you know, it's not about me, it's about them. And
don't get back on the roller coaster.
It's not worth it,
because they will sweep you up. Even my ex will do like this thing where it's like, and I want to react, and it's like the old behavior gets triggered. And you have to go, nope, nope, nope. I'm near, like I still am near the amusement park, because I could hear the dun, 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 dun.
Yes.
But I'm not on that roller coaster.
No,
like I am not on it. And so it's like, don't get on those emotional roller coasters with him. Don't do anything, and you're gonna get so good at being indifferent, and so good at that eventually they'll respect you for it. You know, when we give in, they lose respect. Like when you hold your ground, they'll understand it, and they'll respect it. Like,
and at the end of the day, you know what it boils down to is like, for me, for instance, you know, there is no child support that's being paid at all. And I know most women would say, well, if he's not going to pay me child support, I'm not going to let him see the kids. I mean, I haven't seen child support in like 6 years, which is fine. It's fine. I still allow him to see the girls, because my girls, or my children, don't have a price tag on their head. It's not about the money. It's about whatever indifferences him and I have, he's still the father of my children. And so a lot of the time, I think we as women, we want to teach someone a lesson, but the lesson's going to be taught to you, because you're not allowing those children to have a relationship with the other side of the family. So really do the work and say, this isn't about me, it's about them. And how do I let go of this? And just know that you're a strong woman, and you're going to get through it. And so if it works for you to have a modern family and you can get along with that, by all means, like, embrace that and be grateful that you can do that. If you cannot, do it for the kids, and say, you know what, it's not about me, it's about the kids, because at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. And so I guess with that being said, I want to say that that's it. That's a message.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he is no longer your problem.
Yeah.
What he does, doesn't do, what he thinks, doesn't think, what he says, doesn't say, where he goes, literally 100%, he is not your problem.
Or
if he's a shitty dad and your kids come home upset because he's not paying attention to them, that's between them and the dad. Like, that is not your problem to pick up the phone and go, how dare you talk
I think at this point, safety first.
Yeah,
safety first.
Yes.
And I think that's what it boils down to. Like, if the person's drunk, belligerently drunk, and the kids no longer want to see him because he's not taking care of them, he's not feeding them, he's drunk. It boils down to the kid's safety, because you do hear about parents being very irresponsible, and it goes with women too. Some women are so irresponsible,
or they have the new boyfriend there doing all kinds of crap.
They don't care.
But but assuming that it's just a bad day, or your kids just decide they don't want to go over as often, that's between them, depending on the age too.
Yeah, the age
between them and their dad or whatever. And at the end of the day, the guy's not your problem. Like, he's just not your problem. You know what I mean?
And that's what it boils down to. I think you just have to do the work and say, it's not about me, and if we can get along, great. But if you can't, again, I can't.
Yeah.
We got that Tupac energy going, and I can't stress that enough. What? It's just like you just can't sit at my table, but I want you to eat too.
Yeah, that's it.
So, but that's all we got.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to stay to the very end. We have a wonderful mantra that you could watch if you're watching us on YouTube. Screenshot it and go ahead and say it, and fill yourself with that peace and enlightenment that you might need. Also, if you're listening on your favorite podcast platforms, you can take a look at the mantra in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, you deserve fresh lettuce. Cheers.